Hey guys, welcome to Poor Man Mods. Today is story time. There won't be any wrenching in this video. But over the past, month, 2 months, something like that, I've just been dealing with the most ridiculous debacle with this Supra. And we're coming down to the wire here. I'm filming this video on Monday night. It'll probably be out on Tuesday. And on Saturday is the Poor Man Mods and Marty Motoring Cruise and Chill. And so for the past month or two, I've been trying to get the Supra running. This seems to be the problem every year. But we're coming down to the wire, and I'm hoping that the Supra can make it to the Cruise and Chill. But I don't want this video to sound like I'm complaining, but I want to just tell the story of what has been happening over the past many weeks. So if you're in the mood for a little story time, this is the right video for you. I wish this could be titled That's Not Supposed to Happen, but I don't think it falls into that category, but it's kind of close. So 2 months ago or so, I drove the Supra to work, and I got on the highway, got into a race with an STI, blew its doors off by the way, and it ran amazing. It ran so good, and got off the highway, and my work is 30 seconds off the highway. Parked the car at my work, stupid lights flickering, parked the car at my work, and did my 8-hour shift, came out, started it, and the car ran like absolute crap. And my shop is only about 5 minutes from my work. So I basically limp the car from my work to the shop, and it is just running horrible. Super rich, like 10 AFR, just trying to cruise. But if I got on it, if I romped on it and built like 15 pounds of boost or more, it actually ran fine. But it was just cruising and idle. It just was pig rich. And got it back here and parked it. And a couple of days went by or whatever, and I tried to troubleshoot it, and I noticed something that was really interesting. If I turned my fuel pump off, my fuel pump is on a toggle switch. If I turned off the fuel pump, it would run amazing until it ran out of fuel. So when there was no pressure, the car ran fine. Revved great, sounded good, AFR wasn't crazy, but if I turned my pump back on, it would just drown in fuel. So I thought that I had stuck open injectors. And back at that time, I was talking to Faye over at Pistons and Pixie Dust, and she thought that I had bad fuel. And this was like 2 months ago. I did not think the fuel was bad, but I didn't think it was impossible that the fuel was bad. So I didn't do anything with the fuel. And I figured I'm gonna pull these injectors out since they're probably stuck open. And if I'm pulling out these injectors, these are ID 725, so 725 cc's. If I'm pulling these bad boys out, they are not going back in. I did the complete opposite of a Poor Man mod, and I spent like $1,000 on 1050 cc injectors from Injector Dynamics. And this is where the debacle starts, but it certainly does not end here. I emailed ID and said, hey, I have your injectors. Here's the part number. They're 725s. I want the exact injector, but in 1000. So send me something that will directly swap without any modification. I've already got your wiring, I've got the fuel rail, I've got everything. I don't want to change anything. Just send me your 1000s. And he assured me that that's what they would send me. I get the 1000s and they don't fit. So the base of the injector was different, and I did a lot of struggling with it and ended up having to change the O-rings for the bottom of the injector. I don't know why they were different, but it was just a struggle, and anyway, I got them in. But at that time, my glorious landlord, who recently purchased this building, forgot to pay the electric bill for like 6 months. And before I got the car buttoned back together, we lost power. So I'm in here in the dark with a headlamp on, trying to button up the car in the dark, and I eventually got it. And the car had been sitting for, a month at this point. And the battery had been shut off, and this car does have a battery drain problem. So I got the car buttoned up and went to start the car, and obviously it ran like crap because I just put 1000s in it. And pretty much the car shut off and didn't run. And the battery was dead at that point, and I had no way to charge it because we're out of power. And I couldn't drive the car somewhere with power because it wouldn't run. So eventually, I got a generator for here. I put the generator outside, ran the extension cord in here, and I ran my shop lights, and I ran a battery charger and my laptop. And it was just a freaking mess. It was just an absolute mess. And I eventually, the laptop situation, oh boy. So once I get everything powered up, I log into the Haltech and change the fuel injector size from 725 to 1050, and the car still ran like absolute crap. It had the same symptom to where if I turned off the fuel pump, it would run amazing. With the fuel pump on, it ran like crap. And it was at this time where Faye told me again, you probably have bad fuel, get the fuel out of there and put fresh fuel in. So I got a 5-gallon VP fuel can, disconnected the line going from the rail to the fuel pressure regulator, put 5 gallons of fuel in that jug, put it in my generator to have it freshly filled up with fuel, and walked to the gas station, put 5.5 gallons of fuel in that can, put in the Supra, and no change. At that point, I was pretty frustrated, and I think I called it a night, and I messaged my friend Brad, who originally tuned this car at Haltech, and I told him what was going on, and he said, let me remote into it and I can see what's going on. And I said, no problem. Actually, there are problems. So there's no Wi-Fi here at the shop, but I have a work phone with unlimited mobile hotspot. Perfect. So I took out my iPhone, put on the mobile hotspot, and the laptop that I have the Haltech running on could not connect to the iPhone's Wi-Fi. Now, my primary laptop is a MacBook Pro, as most YouTubers, and the Haltech software does not work on a Mac. So Tony, a couple years ago, gave me this PC laptop to run the Haltech software on, and it runs the software great. It's not slow, it's a good little laptop, but it can't connect to my iPhone's mobile hotspot. Couldn't figure it out, took it to work, and it couldn't connect to my boss's iPhone mobile hotspot either. But it could connect to the Android mobile hotspot, and I don't have mobile hotspot on my Android because I'm poor and I can't afford it. So I'm like, what the heck do I do? How am I going to get Brad to remote in here if the laptop that I have that runs the Haltech can't connect to my mobile hotspot for you to remote into? So my boss did a very generous thing, got a laptop for me that he had Linux running on it, and he reformatted it, put Windows on it, and it connected to the iPhone. So he gives me the laptop, I bring it here, and of course, there had to be a problem. It just did not want to run the Haltech software. This laptop was stupidly slow for no reason. It was a fresh reformatted hard drive, and I fought with it for like 3 hours just to get the software onto the laptop. And I'm like, I don't have this problem with my other laptop, but it won't connect to the iPhone. Very frustrating. So Brad eventually logs in to the laptop and says, hey, the engine's off, right? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, it thinks you're making 18 pounds of boost right now. So your map sensor's bad. Okay, if that's my problem, that's an easy fix. So apparently it's uncommon, of course. And if it's uncommon, it would certainly happen to me. But the internal map sensor of the Haltech ECU failed, and it was just ramping up. And it thought I was making 18 pounds of boost at idle, and so that's why it was just dumping fuel. It wasn't a stuck injector problem. And I said, okay, that makes sense. And perfect timing, because yesterday I sent out my injectors to ID to get cleaned. So I spent $150 on those injectors to get cleaned when I didn't have to. Perfect timing. So he says my options are to send the ECU to Haltech to get repaired, or install an external map sensor and reconfigure the Haltech to run an external map sensor. Since at this time the Poor Man Mods and Marty Motoring Cruise and Chill is only a week away, I'm like, there's no way that I can send my ECU out in time to get fixed, so I'll run the external map sensor. And if everybody runs like the GM 3-bar map sensor. So I had to go to work, and my buddy Nick, who is super awesome, while I was at work, found what we thought was a GM 3-bar map sensor. He found one at Napa. He asked for one for a 2009 Silverado 2500 HD with the 6-liter engine. When I put that in the car, I wired it up incorrectly and fried it. I did not do my due diligence before installing it. There were 3 wires for the sensor: a voltage supply, a ground, and then a signal to the ECU. I supplied 12 volts to it. You're supposed to supply 5 volts to it from the ECU. And when I supplied the 12 volts, it cooked it. So that sensor was fried. It was only 40 bucks, but annoying. The next day, I went to Advance Auto to get another sensor. Don't ask why I went to Advance Auto versus Napa, whatever. But this time at Advance Auto, the sensor was like 80 bucks. That's all they had. So I bought an $80 sensor, put it in the car, and it didn't run any better. When I connected the sensor to the Haltech ECU and loaded the GM 3-bar map, it still thought I was making 18 pounds of boost at idle. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And we tried making our own calibration map for the sensor, and that did not work. So then I got a vacuum pump and hooked it to the map sensor. And the way a map sensor works is it has a range of basically 0 to 5 volts. At full vacuum, like negative 28 or whatever that number is, it's supposed to be 0 volts, 0.1 volt, whatever, super low. And basically full pressure, full boost, full power is 5 volts. This sensor that I had, it was wired up correctly at this time. Just sitting there with the engine off, it was putting out 4 volts. So the ECU thought it was making like 18 PSI. And then I hooked a vacuum pump to it and supplied pressure to the sensor. And at just 5 PSI of pressure on that sensor, it was maxing out at 5 volts. So I guess the sensor that we bought was a 1-bar GM sensor because it could not read above 5 PSI. Once it saw 5 PSI, it couldn't put out any more voltage. So just to confirm my theory with the 5 PSI with the hand pump, even though we did our own calibration table of the map sensor in the Haltech, I took the car out for a drive and it drove amazing at idle and in cruising, but it maxed out at 5 PSI. Even though the calibration map that we made allowed you to make more than 5, when I got on the throttle and loaded it up, once I hit like 4.5 PSI, it would fall on its face and completely shut off like the map sensor was maxed out. So after that, I parked the car. I was pretty frustrated. And the next day, which was a Sunday, and I was surprised our Napa was open, I went up there and ordered a map sensor for a 2010 Corvette ZR1. It looks identical to this one, which is for the 2009 Silverado 6-liter. Looks identical, but it's a different part number, and I figured if it's for a boostlet application, an LSA and an LS9, it has to be a GM 3-bar. So I installed it and did some testing with my voltmeter and the pressure gauge, and it did the same exact thing. Just sitting there with the engine off, it was putting out 4 volts again. And with the pressure pump, it would only max out at 5 PSI. And I got Brad back on my computer. He logged in and he said, "Oh, you dummy, you have to ground the sensor to a sensor ground in the ECU, not just to the body." So I said, "Oh, that makes perfect sense." So redid the wiring for him and he logged in and it was doing the same exact thing. And he was thinking, well, maybe since that sensor failed inside the ECU, maybe it's just causing other things to act wacky, so you should probably just send your ECU out. And I said, you know what, you're probably right, but I'm going to try to poor man mod this thing. So we got off the phone and I was just adjusting the calibration table more and took the car out for a drive, and it did this. So I guess that's not supposed to happen. The sensor with my hand pump wouldn't put out any more voltage past 5 PSI. So it couldn't recognize more than 5 PSI. And with the other GM sensor, this one, the car couldn't make more than 5. But somehow with this Corvette ZR1 where I recalibrated the table in the ECU, it made 20 pounds of boost. So apparently that's not supposed to happen, and Brad told me that wasn't supposed to happen, but I did it anyway. So now the car is running, even though it shouldn't be. Something is still wacky going on, but it pulled great. So I'm not going to touch anything. I'm going to tidy up the wiring a little bit, and I'm going to get this thing to the frickin' cruise and chill, and then after, I think I'll send my ECU out for repair. But I just thought this whole debacle was ridiculous and worthy of a story. Each individual component wasn't worthy of a video of itself. I thought about doing a video for the injectors, and I decided not to. But this whole story, I think, was worthy of story time. I know I've been rambling on, but I hope that the 3 of you that stuck here enjoyed this story. All of this 20-minute video, or however long it is, all of this was because of a failed map sensor. The power outage, the injectors, the laptops, the mobile hotspots, all of that bullcrap. It's because of a $30 sensor. So, unfortunately, I didn't do a video on how to wire up a GM 3-bar map sensor because I'm not even sure at this point if I did it right, but the car is running and that's not supposed to happen. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I doubt you learned something from it, but I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time, and hopefully see you at the Cruise and Chill. I'll have a link to that event in the description down below if you want to be there. We are in Pennsylvania, so most of you probably won't make it. So, see you guys next time. We're at the Cruise and Chill. Bye.